This is a mic check to make sure everything's working. Checking 1 2 3 1 2 3. All right. What is up, loyal lads and ladies? My name is Midnight Wolf, and welcome to part 2 of day 2, Citizencon 2954. And I just want to say thank you really quick for sticking with me on this and joining me as we conclude the Citizencon from earlier today. So this is live right now, but the Citizencon presentation has already concluded, but we will go ahead and watch the very last panel and kind of critique it. I'll go ahead and do some highlights of it, or like write down my highlights and then let you guys know after the presentation what I think of it and kind of do a quick rundown of everything that they've covered, or at least the things that are worth mentioning. And then after the fact, I will probably conclude this stream by just kind of rating it. Well, like not really like an official rating, but just kind of give my honest takes on, did this Citizencon achieve the claim that it was kind of that they were making it out to be. They were saying as far back as even March, I think it was, that they were saying that this was going to be the best Citizencon to date. So I will let you guys know what my opinions are about that in just a little bit, and then we'll go from there. But I'll go ahead and read what this panel is, and then we will just hop right on in. So thank you for joining me today. So we are about to watch the panel The Star is My Destination, Star Citizen 1.0, PvP, PvE, non-combat. What type of game is Star Citizen? If you want answers, join us as we outline a high-level overview of Star Citizen 1.0 and what our intentions are for our epic shared universe. So I'm excited. I think this will be a great panel. I think it's important. It's an important one. It's probably the most important panel of the entire thing. It's probably not going to be the greatest panel, but it's probably the most important one. Defining what Star Citizen is, especially now, like the sooner the better. So that way you can kind of set expectations, because people already have kind of preconceived ideas of what Star Citizen is going to be to them, and CIG's kind of mission or their goals may not necessarily match up with what people desire, and there's a good chance it does, but we'll see. We'll see what it happens with this one, and yeah, I'm kind of I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good regardless of the outcome, because it will kind of help define what Star Citizen is supposed to become. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on to the presentation. So do that.
Okay. It's time, everybody. It's time. And before we get this started, we're doing a lot of things here. I want to do some personal thanks to myself. Okay? So, first, I want to thank all the developers who took their time to build their presentations and showcase for you their amazing work that they've been doing over the last year for Star Citizen and Squadron 42. So please, a round of applause for the developers. It is not easy to stand on this stage in front of 4,000 people, in front of tens of thousands of people at home, and the hundreds of thousands
right on schedule
who will clip this and replay it and cut it into other content videos for years and years to come. So thank you so much. I want to do a couple individual call-outs, though, because it's important to me, and I'm on stage right now, and you're a captive audience. I want to call out Nick Pierce. Nick Pierce from the Characters and Creatures presentation. 10 days ago, we lost our main presenter. He didn't die or anything, he just couldn't make the trip. Nick stepped in with only 10 days to prepare that amazing armor specialization presentation that you saw. So Nick, you're a champion. Thank you so much, stepping at the last minute. Benoit and Ian. Benoit and Ian took the reins and delivered multiple presentations this year. You may only see them talking in this presentation or this presentation. You're going to see Ian in this one here, like this. But their work behind the scenes, getting all of these presentations up to the standard that they're required, was amazing this year. So Benoit and Ian, you don't have to clap for this one. This is just for me. Thank you so much, Benoit and Ian. All right, you can clap. That's fine. You might have noticed we went on ISC hiatus a couple weeks ago. We went on hiatus a little earlier than normal because we took the ISC gameplay capture team and we dedicated them to the work of Citizencon for the last almost 6 weeks. Every year at Citizencon, the devs spend their time creating their footage for you, their showcases for you, and many of them still did. But the amount of work it takes them away from the work of actually creating the game. So our ISC gameplay capture team really stepped up this year for the first time in Citizencon history and helped folks create the videos. Those amazing looks at Nyx, those amazing looks at Castra, the amazing looks at the sandworm and stuff. So I want to call out Will, Dave, Toby, Alex, and our newest member, Thomas. Hi, Thomas. Thank you so much, guys. They had never participated in a Citizencon before, and I think they were a little surprised at first at the sheer amount of work that goes into doing this, but they stepped up and delivered some amazing stuff, the last of which you're gonna see some in this next presentation. And then our last two groups of people I want to present, I want to share. Are they back there? Wave if you're back there. You guys ready? I can't see anything. All right, I hope I'm vamping a little bit until Rich Tyra gets into place. I could hide it from you, but I'm not. So the last groups of people I want to thank.
At least he's honest.
Well, let me tell you a story real quick. When I'm back there, and folks are coming up to me, and they're thanking me for this, and thanking me for doing ISC, for doing SEL, for putting this together on the stage today, I'm struck by two things every time I'm thanked. One is that I can't do any of this without you. There is no game project in the world that does a weekly behind-the-scenes docuseries each and every week, and then turns around and does a live talk show the next day after it. And that's only made possible because you guys keep tuning in, you guys keep watching, you guys keep supporting, you guys keep making relatively positive comments about me. I don't think I'm ever going to shave my face again.
We love you, Jared.
But it's all right. I just wanted to see what I look like. You know, I'm like, oh, that's what you look like. All right, I agree with the people. Let's bring it back. And then last but not least, there is one person who makes it possible for me to do everything that I've done here. I've been here for 10 years. I've produced 7 Citizencons. I've produced 3 Gamescoms, a PAX or 2, and a couple digital stuff, and of course ISC and SCL every single week. And really, after your support, the only reason I get to do this week in and week out and have these big moments like this is because of the same guy who makes it possible for all of us to do our jobs. So I'd like to thank, where's the camera? There you go. I'd like to thank Chris Roberts. Chris, thank you. Thank you for not thinking Sandy was crazy when she hired me. Thank you for saying yes to so many things I want to do, and for not saying no or getting angry when I don't ask. So thank you so much. I do operate a lot on a let's just do it and see if I get in trouble afterwards thing. So is that Chris there? Are you ready? All right. So with that, yes, he's angry now. All right. So without further ado, let's get to our final presentation of the night. The Star is My Destination. Introduced to you by the one and only Chris Roberts.
Hey, well, I hope you had a great day yesterday. And by the way, there's a perfect run through that Rich did immediately after the show. He went back to the office, ran it through, no crashes, no nothing. It's up on YouTube. And by the way, that's a dedication of Rich. He's like, okay, I'm going to get it done properly, and he did it. And it looks great, and it doesn't have any screen tearing, because there was some screen tearing. There was a technical glitch in the setup yesterday. So anyway, watch that. And if you're doing comparisons to the old stuff, compare with that video, not from the stream. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this morning. There was the base building and the crafting and the ships, you'll be able to do it. I mean, for me, the ability to sort of create your own place somewhere in the verse, find the perfect spot for you to make your home or harvest resources, it totally changes the dynamic of what the game will be in terms of exploration and people spreading out, and I think putting roots down in the verse. So I can't wait till we get that in there. I mean, that's one of the things that makes me incredibly excited, because I think it will just add so much to a living, breathing universe. But that is a perfect example of Star Citizen, how it's grown over the last 12 years, because we definitely did not have that on the initial Kickstarter or the pitches that we were doing. And, you know, Star Citizen is a living game. I mean, we're constantly always adding content and features and tech. As you can see, we're constantly upgrading, you know, what we're doing on the graphics side, making it better and always improving it. And even after we would consider it a released or a shipped game, not an alpha game, we will still be doing that. So it's just it will be a living game. We'll never do Star Citizen 2.0. It will always be sort of Star Citizen that will continue to grow. It won't be like, oh, we're going to do Destiny 2 after Destiny 1. It will just be a living, growing product. Same for Right? I don't mean that as a knock at them. I just mean that in today's world, you constantly upgrade and improve things. But the big
Shots
question
fired.
really is, at what point would we at CIG, what point would I, what point would the rest of the team consider Star Citizen ready for everybody? Not just you guys out here who are beautiful, wonderful, early adopters, willing to put up with bugs, jankiness, not a great new player experience. We know all those things are things that we want to fix and improve, and we want a game that everyone can just get into at the beginning, understand it, have fun, pulls you into it, and then has a huge amount of depth. So the question is, what is that? And that is what we call Star Citizen 1.0. It's something that we've been talking and looking and designing and thinking a lot about over the past X number of years. And now we thought, what we should do, because I think half our sort of initial stuff is from a long time ago that you've seen, and then occasionally we'll talk about things we're doing in, inside Star Citizens or SE Lives. But we're like, okay, let's tell everyone the marker. This is what it is, Star Citizen 1.0. When we hit this, this is what we consider we're ready to go wide. Everybody in the world can get in, play it, whether you're hardcore or casual, have fun, play in the verse, interact, have a great time. And so that is what we're going to tell you today, is what we consider Star Citizen 1.0. That doesn't mean, as I said, that we'll stop at that point. We'll continue to grow and build and add things. So fishing is not on Star Citizen 1.0's list, but I'm pretty sure, I know, but I'm pretty sure it will be not that long after 1.0. But that is the example. We're going to tell you what the marker
Not
is.
long.
And, to do that, Rich Tyra, who's our
Not a
senior
promise, you guys.
game director, is going to come out with a few of our other directors, and we'll lead you through what 1.0 will be. So without further ado, Rich Tyra. All right, Rich. Don't crash.
Yeah. Hello, Citizencon. So, my name is Rich Tyra, and I'm the Senior Game Director for Star Citizen and Squadron 42. Now, I've been at Cloud Imperium for many years, and I've read many, many Spectrum and Reddit posts. And one consistent question I always see is, what type of game is Star Citizen? And I've read many, many answers. It's a PvE game. It's a PvP game. What about non-combat? Ultimately, it's all three. 3 types of players, 1 universe. So how do we connect those players to create a cohesive game, and not just a set of features bolted together? And it comes back to that elegant, simple question. What type of game is Star Citizen? Well, today, we're going to find out. Okay, so before we get stuck into Star Citizen 1.0, I think I need to clarify a few things. Firstly, what about 4.0? Where does that fit in? Well, 4.0 is the patch that contains server meshing and pyro. And fundamentally, it's an alpha development patch, which means it's adding further tech, features, and content to our alpha version of the game. Today, though, is beyond 4.0, all the way to 1.0. And the big difference is that 1.0 is the full release of the game. Okay, so what does that mean? How will it be different to a normal patch? Well, firstly, let's look at the 1. The 1 means we're committing to higher base performance and minimal bugs. No longer will we reference that the game is in development. This will be a fully released and polished experience. It means fully rounded gameplay loops, from new player experience to story missions and endgame content. And crucially, it means no more resets between patches. It's a true persistent universe. So if that's the 1, what about the .0? Well, it's just as important. It means we're still committed to continued development. with new content and features being planned post 1.0. But those features will no longer be tier 0. We'll be committing to a higher benchmark of quality for each patch, and most importantly, it's a moment in time. If there is a content, feature, or star system that we've mentioned in the past that is not in 1.0, it just means it will come later. 1.0 is more than just a number change. It's the beginning of a new phase of development of the game. Okay, so we know what the 1 is and the .0, but before we move on, I want to address one important point. And for this, we need to go all the way back to the beginning. Here we are, the Kickstarter. As a backer myself, it brings back memories. And it also reminds me we had a lot of stretch goals. And one of those goals was 100 star systems. But, and there is a but, the star systems of old are not the star systems of today. They were based on the privateer and freelancer model. They were unexplorable planets with an isolated and small landing zone and had automated landings. And we all know how that went. To give you an idea, Stanton had 4 points of interest, and the entire 100 systems only had 90 POIs. Compare that to Stanton today, and we have 1,626 points of interest. And that is going to be dwarfed once we start using the Starchitect tool you saw yesterday. So where does that leave us for 1.0? Well, we will not be launching with 100 star systems, because the game we have today was not just the game that was pitched back then. It's more rich, it's more diverse, and fundamentally, you'll be getting a whole lot more, and I mean a lot more. Okay, so now I've defined what 1.0 is, let's get into the cool stuff. Star Citizen, by its very nature, is a sandbox MMO. Today, you as a player have to find the fun. You have to figure out what you can do and how to do it. If you want to be a hauler or salvager, you have to know those professions exist. You have to know what ships support that gameplay. And you have to rely on outside resources for help. As it is now, the game is not set up to help you. So we're going to add a soft framework, a nervous system, that connects all the professions, ships, and content together. And to do this, we're going to add a main story. To help
Interesting.
To help new and existing players, to help discover all the exciting features and content we have, to take them on a journey of discovery of what the game has to offer. This story will become the spine of the universe and help onboard players with understanding how to play the game and understand what's available to them. This story will also introduce each of our guilds and what professions we have to offer. Like the United Resource Workers, our core industrial guild, which supports 2 of our main professions, mining and salvaging. They also support many other features and professions, like repair technician, crafter, and builder. Guilds are hugely important in Star Citizen, and as you know by now, guilds are comprised of many factions. As you work for each of these factions, you will gain guild reputation. You can then use this reputation as a currency to purchase guild-affiliated rewards, like ships, blueprints, and items. And each guild will have a unique inventory of what they offer. Alongside economic growth, guild reputation will become a core progression of the game. And to talk more about guilds and our main story, I'd like to introduce David Haddock onto the stage, our very own narrative director.
Thank you, Rich. Hello, Citizencon. How's it going? Awesome. So yes, 1.0 is very exciting, and it's going to provide us probably our first real opportunity to finally inject a massive amount of narrative into the game. But we're looking to do that in several of ways. Now, Rich introduced the main story, so let's get into it. What exactly is that? First, it's a narrative experience. This will be a crafted story through the star systems and professions of the Star Citizen universe, taking players on an exciting adventure that will finally kick off the growing tension between Earth and Terra. Yeah. It will be NPC-driven. So while Squadron 42 will always be the place to go for AAA cinematic adventure, we're bringing a lot of the techniques that we learned from that to capture and build a cast of dynamic characters, some of which may be familiar, for both this story and the PU. And the main story is also designed to be sort of like a tour bus structure where you can hop on and hop off at any time you want to. So we're not also requiring you to do it. So if you want to log in day one and just go off and do your thing, you can do that. Or maybe you want to put the story on hold so you can go explore a new facet of gameplay that you just discovered. Go for it. The point is that you can complete it at your own pace. So that's the what. So why do you want to do this? What's the motivation to want to go on this ride? Like Rich said, for new players, it's a great way to ease into sort of the vast lore that we've been developing over 12 years, the gameplay, the locations that the game has to offer, and also give you a sense of upcoming stories that are about to come. But you've been playing Star Citizen for years. You probably know the lore better than me. So what's in it for you? Now, of course, we'll have rewards along the way as you complete missions and whatnot, but we're finally going to offer a big prize for completing the story. Citizenship. So, many of you already know this, but for the uninitiated, in the UEE, there are citizens and there are civilians. Citizens are members of the population who have demonstrated a commitment to bettering the empire, and as such are given benefits that civilians just don't have. Now, what those differences have been debated in the community over years. 1.0, we're finally going to answer that debate. I won't get into the full list of benefits that we're going to offer, but can reveal that one of them will be around land ownership. Citizens will be able to purchase land anywhere in the UEE and enjoy the security that comes with it. But civilians will have a couple of restrictions as to which systems and which planets they can buy on. So that's the why. So where is this adventure going to take you? Well, 1.0 is going to include 5 star systems. This story is going to weave you through all of them, but where exactly are you going to go? First, we've got Stanton, which needs very little introduction. I'm sure you're all very intimately familiar with these 4 corporate-run worlds. But since I do lore, I figure I could take the next hour and just walk through each one of these. But I'm kidding. We've also got Pyro, Land of the Lawless. A volatile star at the center of the system is the perfect metaphor for the constant struggle between the gangs and survivors trying to hack out an existence here. If you saw Ian's location presentation yesterday, then you know that he reintroduced Nick's system. There's another unclaimed system that's currently home to the People's Alliance, a wannabe independent government formed during the Messer era, but now struggling with the burdens of governance, a growing outlaw presence, and a new threat on their doorstep from Vandal raids. Ian also made another big announcement of our 4th system, Castra. Situated along the former Perry line, this was a key strategic system to launch an attack if the Cold War between the humans and the Xi'an ever escalated. So that's 4. Do you guys want to know 5? Yeah. We're finally doing it. Considered by many to be the new jewel of the Empire, Terra has been a shining star against the more imperialistic tendencies of Earth, even in the darkest days of the Messer regime. Now, many believe that Terra should be the new center of the UEE. I don't know how you all feel about that. Yeah, a lot of division. But that's our starting 5. Each system and each planet will be featuring the massive level of outposts, POIs, stations, biomes, and exploration options that we've been perfecting with Stanton and Pyro, and you've been seeing in some of the other presentations this weekend. But we're adding one more level. We're also going to be adding location stories. Now, these will be short, NPC-driven missions sprinkled across our landing zones and cities that will exist outside of the main story, but will help provide an additional bit of lore and character to the location that they take place in.
Side quests.
So,
Maybe.
that's our main story. Let's talk more about the guilds that Rich mentioned. First, a quick recap. Guilds act as a governing body for clusters of professions and factions with a reputation and progression system that will offer rewards the more you work for them. And I want to call out 2 things. One, I'm not going to have time to dive into all of the missions that you're going to see on this board, but just know that every mission type is either in the 1.0 roadmap or already in production. And second, we're also looking to move missions away from the Moby Glass whenever possible. Sure, it will always be an easy way for us to get additional game content in, but we want you talking with people. So to aid that, we're going to be adding characters to represent the factions that you'll be working for that will help sell their personality. Now, some, they'll still interact with you via the written word, but some will call and check in on your performance. And others, you may have to meet in person from time to time. So, let's walk through them. Here we have the first guild that Rich showed, the United Resource Workers. Whether you're eager to earn credits, mining valuable resources from remote corners of the universe, sifting through detritus to try and salvage some valuable components, or even just acting as a technician, you'll find plenty to do with employers like Shubin Interstellar, United Wayfarers Club, and more. Next, you have one of the oldest unions in the UEE, the Interstellar Transport Guild. This will be the go-to place for everybody looking to make their fortune hauling and trading. Some of the factions that many of you already work for now, such as Ling Family Hauling, Redwind, and FTL. And we're going to be adding something special for the daredevils out there, the Imperial Sports Federation. So aside from the usual racetracks that are both legitimate and illegitimate, we're actually going to be leveraging some of our existing mechanics to build new sports and provide an outlet for all you Murray Cup enthusiasts, Cargo Olympians, and competitors to see just who's the best out there. For those who dream of exploring, I'm sure we have a couple here.
I like to explore.
We had the Academy of Sciences that was brought up yesterday in the social presentation, if you saw that. This is a science guild that will include factions like the Imperial Cartography Center, who will task you with a variety of missions to better understand our universe, such as sending you into a nebula to do deep scans, or finally seeing what's at the bottom of that planetary canyon. We're going to have a new faction called High Point Wilderness Specialists, who will offer missions associated with the various fauna that we're starting to get into the game, from population control missions to harvesting specific resources for research. Now, I don't know if we have some people who'd like to do combat, but our combat guilds were doing something a little different. Now, previous to this, these are all of our profession guilds. But for our combat guilds, they operate a little differently. See, these two are diametrically opposed to each other. So once you pledge allegiance to one, the other marks you as an enemy. On the lawful side, we have the Mercenary Guild. They represent factions like Eckhart Security, the Bounty Hunters Guild, and even some military contractors. So whether you're pulling together a team of specialists to go assault a ground base, hunting down an elusive criminal, or putting together a recon run to drum up some intel, Mercenary Guild's got you covered. On the flip side, we have the Council. Now, this is a shadowy group comprised of representatives from various gangs, syndicates, and outlaws who mandate criminal activity throughout the verse. You'll be able to throw in with rough-and-tumble gangs like the Headhunters and the Dead Saints, or work your way up to join highline criminal syndicates like the Atonis or the Drop Kings. But remember, The underworld is a dangerous place run by greed and power. So mercenary guild reps might not be the only people you have to worry about, as the syndicates are always looking for loyal soldiers who will hurt their competition and tip the scales of power in their favor. So as you can see, there's going to be a universe of exciting storytelling opportunities for you to undertake in 1.0. But one more thing, we're also going to revitalize our social behaviors to make the populations not only feel more alive and reactive and off chairs, but better reflect the tone and flavor of the areas that they're inhabiting. We want to see the people of Loreville slowly trudging through the streets, overburdened by the ruthless contracts, just as much as we want to see the tourists of Orison gleefully moving from attraction to attraction. And all of this is what's going to make Star Citizen be the experience we set out to make. A diverse universe with a rich tapestry of stories, characters, and experiences for you to live in. To talk more about how all this feeds back into player progression, I'm going to turn it back over to Rich Tyler.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Smashed it. Thanks, Dave. Okay, so we have a main story to connect the universe. We have all the guilds and their associated professions, and we have location stories to give the world depth and life. Crucially, though, we have a new core progression in the game, guild reputation. But what about our other core progression in the game? The economy. So, as we've discussed before, we'll be implementing a Star Sim-powered dynamic economy that will automatically adjust the in-game prices based on player activity. But for credits to actually matter, though, we need to have an economy where credits flow out as well as in. This means transactions such as repairing, refueling, and restocking need to have value. If everything is too cheap and the money coming into the economy is too great, we'll have massive inflation. And this is where taxes and insurance come in. Boo! We'll have two main taxes: inheritance tax as part of Death of a Spaceman, and security tax for your base that will cover the cost of planetary shield tech. Insurance, on the other hand, will be split between medical insurance, which covers your hospital imprints, and probably the most important one of all, ship insurance. Now, as we have Death of a Spaceman, we also need Death of a Spaceship. Losing your ship should be significant. Right now, for example, over 90% of all claims in the verse are for ships that have not been destroyed. And this is where ship insurance and our new warranty mechanic comes in. First up, we'll have 3 tiers of insurance, with level 1 being chassis insurance, level 2, chassis and component insurance, and level 3, chassis, component, and decorations insurance. Now, insurance by itself will only pay out credits based on the wear and age of your ship. Insurance, I think you want to listen to this bit because it's important. Insurance with a warranty, though, will give you back a new ship, plus any other equipment or decorations based on the tier of insurance you had. Okay, so this is the bit you need to listen to. All ships bought on the Pledge Store will come with a permanent warranty and their appropriate insurance. This means you will always get your ships back if they're attributed to your account. Other ships, on the other hand, will require a transferable warranty, and these are rare. You'll be able to earn transferable warranties in-game, such as by completing the main story, as an example, and apply them to any of the ships you own. But there will be a cooldown for transferring it between ships, so choose wisely. Now, what about claim timers? It's another fun topic. And getting your ship back without a claim. Well, we want claim timers to be proportional to the crafting timers. This means it's more beneficial for you to go back and get your original ship. For this, we're going to be introducing a shuttle ship, just like a courtesy car. You'll be able to claim the shuttle at no extra cost to most locations, and then fly it back to your original ship. Once back in your ship, the shuttle will automatically return home. If your ship has been legitimately lost, though, then you'll need to claim it back. And as we'll be increasing claim timers, this will mean some ships will take longer than others, with starter or small ships always being readily available, and larger capital-sized ships taking a long time. So it's always better to try and get your ship back if possible. Okay, so we've talked about our two core progressions, but what does that mean to you as a player? Well, firstly, it means we have a framework where we can start creating cyclical gameplay loops. But what are they? Let me show you. Okay, so right now in live, if you have a prospector, you probably enjoy mining. And the reward for mining is credits and the enjoyment of the activity. But in 1.0, you might be mining for a whole different reason. And this is where cyclical gameplay loops come in. Firstly, let's add all the manufacturers and ships in. I'll just give you a moment to take that in, because there's a lot. I actually had to ask them to take the variants out, because it didn't fit on this slide. And let's zoom all the way into the prospector, a stalwart of the mining community. But let's say I really fancy acquiring a military Mark II Hornet. Let's go on a simplified journey of how I could get one. Firstly, I know I won't be able to buy it, as it's a military ship, so I'm going to need to craft it. That means I will need the fabrication hangar blueprint. Luckily, I can earn it by doing mining missions to gain rep with the United Resource Workers, and I already have the perfect ship, my trusty prospector. With blueprint in hand and some excess credits, I can now purchase a small plot of land on Stanton and build my fabrication hangar. Step 1, complete. Now I need to grab the Mark II Hornet blueprint. For this, I need mercenary rep, and more importantly, a combat ship. With that in mind, I will do a few more mining contracts to earn enough credits to purchase a Mustang from the dealership. Now I can start doing combat pilot missions for the Mercenary Guild, so I can unlock the Mark II Hornet blueprint. Okay, step 2 of our simplified loop is complete. I have the Mark II blueprint, but I need the resources to craft it. So I come full circle back to my prospector, but this time I'm mining for resources instead. As you can see, this closes the loop. No longer am I mining just because I like it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But now I am mining for a purpose and for multiple reasons. For credits, for reputation, for resources, for blueprints, and ultimately as a stepping stone to crafting my own ships to enjoy other professions. And this is just one of many loops. This is the core of Star Citizen 1.0. Player set goals that weave between sandbox gameplay and the soft framework we are adding that give meaning and progression to our professions and features. It's providing the framework for motivation to play the game. That's the journey, though. What about the destination? So Dave has already discussed citizenship and the main story, so let's collapse that for now. Let's talk about endgame content. the content that is designed for experienced players and keeps them engaged. Basically, everyone in this room. So how does that look in 1.0? Firstly, we'll have open world content, including missions, group missions, and server-wide events, like we have today, but tailored to endgame players. While the sandbox element of Star Citizen will allow for large-scale battles, we also want to provide challenging instanced content that will take full advantage of not only multi-crew ships, but fleets of ships. And you kind of know how we do that, right? You saw that yesterday. And as you progress through the guilds, you'll be able to accept high-level contracts from government agencies who will offer prototype and military blueprints as rewards. These missions will require the full coordination of multiple players and an assorted fleet of capital, support, and fighter ships. You will finally be able to become the admiral of the fleet, directing your armada from your hologlobe, which, yes, is a feature included in 1.0. We will also be offering more specialized on-foot missions that see you enter the depths of distribution centers and municipal works in small, tight-knit squads that provide an outlet for our more FPS-focused players. On top of all this will sit a dynamic layer powered by StarSim. While StarSim will be the driving force in our dynamic economy, it will also track player and AI activity and dynamically spawn events based on their actions. For example, if it tracks large amounts of resources being moved from one home location to another, it will have a chance to spawn pirates to intercept. All this combined will provide just a portion of the endgame experience, and I'd love to delve deeper, but that's for another day, as we still have a lot to show. So we've discussed non-combat professions and guilds, cyclical gameplay loops, and endgame PvE content. But what about PvP? What about player versus player content? As you know, 1.0 will contain 5 star systems, 3 of these being lawful in Stanton, Castra, and Terra, and 2 of them being unlawful in Pyro and Nyx. So what's the difference? Let's take a look at Stanton. Lawful systems will be a mixture of high, medium, and low security areas. Each of these areas will be monitored by law enforcement agencies, and depending on the location, will dictate the emergency response time, with high-sec areas being the fastest. Initially, this response will be measured, but over time will escalate to overwhelming force. This means if someone is attacked, if they can just hold out for a short duration, help will be on the way. Pirates will be able to disrupt this monitoring by shutting down the nearby comm arrays, but this will be highlighted in your star map, with dynamic missions being generated to bring it back online. But this is the PvP you already know and experience right now, just without security forces. But before we jump into an unlawful system, let's explore what options you have if you pirate a ship. Okay, so first up, let's discuss ownership. All ships and high-value items that you own will automatically be assigned to you. This means if someone steals your ship, you can mark it as stolen, either via an insurance claim or in your Mobi. This will then trigger a dead man switch on the stolen ship, meaning it will cease to function after a period of time. But what options does this leave as a pirate? Well, you can still salvage it. You can tow it back to your fabrication hangar to dismantle it for resources. Or, if you have a high enough rep with the council, our criminal guild, you can get the dead man switch disabled and pay for a new title deed to become its new owner. Also, if you're in a lawful system, you'll need to find a transient jump tunnel, as all major locations and POIs will have custom security that will scan you on arrival. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's look at the unlawful system in Pyro. Unlawful systems have no laws at all, and with that comes opportunity. Pyro, as an example, has an abundance of high-quality resources and is a hotbed of criminal activity, the literal definition of high risk, high reward. With crafting now requiring resources, you're going to want to create bases to mine and extract them. This is where base raiding will become a new form of PvP, and it's founded on a combined arms ethos. Defending players will be able to add defenses such as walls, automated turrets, and most importantly, ground shields, a localized version of the planetary shields used in lawful systems that absorb the most powerful of weaponry. No longer can you just turn up and drop a Moab. One huge difference, though, compared to planetary shields, is that these shields can be disabled. You will have to strategically assess each base and punch your way through its defenses on foot to eventually bring down the shield generator. Once the shield is down, then you have options. You want to raise it to the ground, you can bomb it from the air. If you want to extract all the resources, though, you'll need to infiltrate the base using explosive charges and hacking while fighting off the defenders. Now, both piracy and base raiding is founded on sandbox gameplay. And again, that's the essence of Star Citizen. But we want to add more. Something where you can log on and immediately find the action and fight for a purpose. So first up, let's go on a history lesson. In the early 2600s, there was a fledgling corporation called SEAL that had developed a new system-wide planetary shield technology, the same technology that will provide protection for your bases today. To prove this tech, they wanted to use Nyx and Pyro systems as a testbed. With the promise of high-quality resources, SEAL lured independent miners to man the shield network in exchange for shield protection for their settlements. As a prototype, SEAL couldn't provide total coverage over all the mining settlements, and so they created the SEAL Tokens program, allowing the most industrious factions to purchase shield coverage for their work. The network consisted of multiple linked bases on the ground that then linked to several stations in orbit around each planet that then connected to the nearest relay in the shield network, which eventually linked back to the shield core, which oversaw system-wide distribution of the shield technology. Factions could then earn SEAL tokens for working on any part of the network. They could then use these tokens to buy shield coverage, but with the competition amongst factions being so intense, SEAL was only able to offer shielding to the hardest workers. Unfortunately, due to outlaw interference, SEAL eventually pulled out of Pyro and Nyx and pushed for a more automated solution in more civilized systems. So fast forward to present day, without SEAL's backing, they had to pull out and leave it as it is. And welcome to station warfare. With the SEAL network still in place, but lacking resources, orgs can take ownership of these structures to gain access to planetary shield tech, which, as you know, would make their bases invulnerable. Unfortunately, there's a catch. There isn't enough to go around. And as in the good old SEAL days, the system still works via the SEAL token program. To earn tokens, you'll have to assault a location and then deposit resources to power the network. This begins with ground bases and ends at the shield core. Each structure occupied will then accrue SEAL tokens over time, with larger structures earning more, and at the end of each week, you must then use these tokens to purchase shield protection. With shield coverage being limited, though, the system automatically selects the orgs with the highest bid from across all shards. meaning for that week only, a certain number of orgs will gain access to shield protection. So this is a chance for your org to become the de facto leader of a system. It means you'll be able to log on and immediately find the action and fight for your org. And finally, it's not just sandbox PvP or ganking. You are fighting for a purpose. So once you've won your bid, what then? Well, to talk more about that, I'd like to welcome Ian Leyland, Star Citizen's creative director, to the stage.
Used.
Good luck.
Thank you. All right, hello, Citizencon. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Dave. So, to continue the conversation of large-scale endgame org activities, let's go back to Pyro 3, where the ground bases were being built earlier today. This morning, we saw the small habitat being built by Luke, and then we saw Deck start to expand the base into a commercial enterprise. But eventually, we saw a massive example of an org base. But with everything Rich was talking about, with org system-wide activities, we want to give you guys the ultimate end goal. But also the thing we need to protect.
Democracy.
And to do that, let's look up into the sky and see what it is.
The Guardian. Just kidding. Org space station.
Let me introduce you to player space stations. Finally, you can build your home amongst the stars. This will be the starting point for your base of operations for system-wide org activities. But why is this an end goal? Well, first of all, to construct your own space station, it's going to require vast quantities of resources and materials, and also will be a large time investment. But how do we start? Well, it all starts with the supply bay. And the supply bay can only be constructed by the Pioneer. Once it's created, the supply bay then handles the creation of the station itself. Now, we're in gray box development phase, so the artwork's not final, but let's go on a journey and start building our space base. Awesome. Awesome. So as you saw, the cargo grid of the supply bay consumes resources, and the required resources will be substantial and will need to be topped up over time. So this means orgs will be encouraged to have efficient logistic networks to feed the supply bay. And as Rich outlined with professions, it's ideal if your org is well-rounded in terms of roles. Even the starter player can contribute. The supply bay has automated construction zones, which are used to create the station. And unlike ground bases, many drones are used at once to create the base. Once the station is built, the supply bay then integrates into the station itself. So here we are. We've built our core station module, and it's big. And out of the box, the station comes readily built with some core functionality. Let me talk you through it. Right on the top is the bridge, which is the command deck. This is where all further construction is going to be managed. From here, we can then monitor the status of the entire station. We have access to power and water management. Power and cooling is something you'll need to consider carefully. It also is an area to set permissions for who can enter particular areas, either divided by the ranks of the org itself or open to the public. And there'll be a radar station to track the activity outside the base. And the terminals to access logs of who has visited the station and see what they did. So let's jump back in game and take a stroll through our bridge. Super awesome. The back of the bridge leads to a centralized transit network. This spine physically connects the entire station and will provide access to the various decks. Each level in the station will have a centralized lobby area, and this is your station. You'll be able to use the decorator mode, so you'll have plenty of space to theme it however you want. And speaking of having plenty of space, this space station will have a one-to-one interior layout matching the exterior. No magic elevators. So you can circumnavigate around the entire perimeter, and it's wonderful. Okay, let's jump back in. All right. As you can see, right at the bottom of the central transit system leads to the lower areas. This is where you'll gain access to the engineering deck. So like bigger ships, this is where all the hands-on engineering and maintenance gameplay happens. This will serve as the beating heart of your station. Then we have the hangar deck. And as the name implies, this is where you'll gain access to your hangar network. The base station comes with a large hangar already built, along with 2 docking collars, and also empty slots for another 2 medium hangars when needed. There will be a vast network of internal road systems, meaning you can quickly drive from one hangar to the other. No elevators needed. Okay, let's check back in. All right, so your station hangar will offer some enhanced logistics. For example, there'll be spaces for several freight elevators. And there'll be empty modules for open ship parking for vehicles and vehicles and ground vehicles. And there'll be also exit points where you can simply drive out into your station. Then there'll be also an upper level for the observation deck. From the observation deck, you'll have a control room, and from here, you'll have master control over the freight elevators and the vehicle elevators. This means that even before someone has landed, their new cargo can be up into the hangar and ready to be loaded up. Now, everything we've spoken about so far is what comes with your station. Let's talk about what you can do to expand it. As I mentioned before, the station comes with a predetermined interior network of corridors and roads. And in this network, you'll find an array of bulkhead connectors. Bulkhead connectors will come in tiers 1 to 3, which drives the size of room you're able to build. In the interior build mode, this is where you start to expand the interior of your station. The rooms will require resource and time to construct, and once built, you can rename each room, which will be reflected in the station's minimap. The interior of your station will have ample areas for you to expand. You can build generic empty rooms, and you can fill with items to your heart's content. You can also build specialist rooms, where the theme and functionality is already set for you, such as mess halls or infirmaries or generator rooms. And of course, there are shops. So similar to the small shops we built around the ground base, this is on a much bigger scale. But that's just the interior. Let's talk about the exterior. On the exterior, we have minor hardpoints. These are attachment points located on the upper and lower surfaces of the station. Using build mode, you can customize your station with a variety of modules, which tailor it to specific functionality. Some modules cater towards resource collection, such as gas harvesters, while others are geared towards defense, like shields or turrets. This goes back to bridge operations of power management. A situation may arise where power priority is needed. Then we have major hardpoints. The core station module comes with 2 hardpoint connectors. Major hardpoints are used to connect substantial wing additions to your station. The first example Awesome, thank you, awesome. The first example is the cargo wing. The cargo wing will dramatically increase your inventory capacity. So this is ideal for orgs who are specializing in holding. Then we have the refinery wing. So you'll be able to refine resources on a vast scale. As it's in space, it's much more convenient than traveling to a ground base. Now, a player could buy resources from your cargo wing and then refine it directly in the refinery wing. And finally, we have the hangar wing. So, all right. So, the bigger your fleet, the more hangars you'll want. There'll be a variety of hangar sizes as well as docking collars to help organize your fleet's deployment. All major hardpoint wings are connected via struts, and like the rest of the station, the struts are also internally traversable. Okay, so let's recap on the exterior expansion wings. Minor hardpoints give us options on how to collect resources or provide automated defenses for your base. Major hardpoints gives us options on how you can specialize your base. Let's jump back in game and see how our base is getting on. right. Yes, Pedro has been working with us on this as well, so thank you. Looking cool. Customization is just as important as expansion. Similar to ground bases, you'll be able to earn tints for your station, and you'll be able to apply decals for your org logos. Outside of minor and major hardpoints, your station will come with 2 unique base expansion points. One on the top side behind the bridge, and one on the underside. The top side will be for the crow's nest. Now, all the other modules built so far have very specific functionality, but I'll admit, this is for the org members out there who want the ultimate in personal space. All right. So I'm going to be flying around the verse, and I want personal invitations to see what you've done in those rooms, okay? Super cool. I can't wait to see what you do with it. Now let's talk about the underside. This is going to be for the flight deck, which also comes with an additional 3 major hardpoints. The flight deck is perfect for your rapid reaction forces. It's ideal for fighters, but big enough to fit most ships. It's the perfect home for your station's defensive air wing. And just like the hangars, there'll be an observation deck which can override freight elevators, making rearming quicker and easier during operations. So an org with a tight flight deck crew can be substantially more efficient than others. Now, this one's my favorite. Let's take a look. All right. There's a few little Easter eggs in that video. But why do you need a flight deck for your rapid defenses force? Well, if you've built your super awesome station in a super lawless system, now you're the potential targets for others. Everyone will have their eyes on your resources and wonder what gear you've got in your inventories. And let's say we didn't win the station warfare bid that Rich mentioned. Let's take a look at the inevitable. Okay, so not only is your station a staging area for offensive campaigns, it's also a defensive fortress. The exterior of the station itself can take quite a beating. It's going to be very hard to damage. So the goal of attackers instead will be to punch a hole through the defenses and get inside. The optimal way to do this will be to infiltrate through the flight deck or EVA hatches and work your way up. Once inside, yes, once inside and you've cleared out a hangar, you may also want to consider airlifting in a tank or two to clear some corridors. Raiders will have to hack freight elevators or bulkheads in order to gain access. And of course, bring enough ships with them to start hauling out the loot. Gaining control of the bridge will allow access to storage, which would otherwise be unhackable. So, as a defender, there are a variety of automated defenses you're able to install internally within the station, such as blast doors, which seal shut, systems to be breached, and a range of turrets like anti-vehicle or anti-personnel. These will all help slow down the attack and give time for your reinforcements to show up. So let's do a final recap. This is one of the end game goals for dedicated orgs, and will be your base of operations for system-wide activities. The station can be customized both in the interior and the exterior, meaning you can tailor it to your own requirements. And it's your very own home amongst the stars. But wait. But wait.
Double that offer.
There's one more unique module we can build, and that is the dry dock. This unique slot will be at the back of the station. It has its very own dedicated observation room with crafting stations, and has a transit tram which runs along the inside of the arms, leading to the docking collars where your ship will be constructed. So, the only question still remains: what sizes of ship can we build? Let's take a look. No, I'll just watch the end of the show. That's great. I want to see the reaction. Yes.
What?
Thanks, Ian. So now we're talking. Multiple stations linking and
And
dry
only the
docks to
rich
craft
get
your
to
very own
enjoy it.
capital ships. The ultimate end goal for any org. Okay, so let's take a step back. At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned we had 3 types of players and 1 universe. And hopefully you can see we have purposeful gameplay catering to each type of player. But that wasn't the only goal. It was to build a game that connected all 3 together cohesively. And this is where you come in. The community, the lifeblood of Star Citizen. Whether you're a PvE player delving for unique crafting blueprints, a non-combat player mining for high-quality resources or building a base with your friends, or a PvP player fighting for your org in station warfare to protect your base, each one of you supports each other. You need the blueprints to craft, you need the resources to make them, and you need the equipment and protection to be safe. This is what Star Citizen is. It's a universe that caters to all players. Now, I could probably go on for another 10 hours deep diving into each system. But I'd do Jared out of a job, and he needs future ISCs and SC Lives and Citizencons. Today was to reaffirm what type of game we are making. And I hope you continue to come with us on this journey as we march towards Star Citizen 1.0. Thank you, Citizencon, and can we welcome Chris Roberts? No? No?
1 second.
Jared? Okay. So Chris is not ready yet. So we're gonna ad-lib a bit.
I'm here.
Oh, well, LTI is warranty and insurance. That's what you're gonna get.
I have it on my thing on. Yeah.
Welcome, Chris Roberts.
Yeah, ahead of schedule.
Yeah. I was going
1:30.
I don't know. Oh, you don't need this, right?
Well, then they're going to scroll it. Thanks, Rich. Rich, Dave, and Ian. I hope you guys and girls loved what you saw there. It's having a definitive line in the sand is incredibly empowering for the whole team, and I think for all of you guys in the community. As I said, in introducing the presentation, we will never stop growing Star Citizen, even past 1.0. And part of what makes Star Citizen so special is the symbiotic relationship between you guys, the community, and us, the developers. And I know I can be accused of feature creep, but you only need to look at Spectrum, Reddit, and Discord to see countless great ideas and suggestions that come from people playing a live alpha and seeing areas that the game can grow and improve. And often we take these on board because they will make the game better. And in some ways, while you could say Star Citizen is a Chris Roberts game, I would say it's all our game. The developers, the community, building the game, we're all building this dream game together. And I think that's what makes it special. I think that's why you guys and girls have been here for as long as you have and have supported us through thick and thin, because we're doing something together. And I don't think in almost any other game you have the opportunity to be involved at that level and have your voices heard and impact what we do. Because, you know, occasionally we'll do things and you guys are like, no, that sucks. And we're like, yeah, you're right, we'll change it. And also, like I said, we definitely read and look and hear all the stuff that you write. Some of it may not be so nice, but a lot of it is really great. And we take it aboard because we're just trying to build this amazing universe for us all to live in together. So, what defining 1.0 does, though, for us is give us a finish line in terms of feature and content we are committed to delivering for when your life in the verse becomes truly persistent, your gameplay to progress your reputation, the money you earn, the material possessions you collect and earn will persist even as we deliver more content and features. And I think that's incredibly important for really finally being able to fully commit and not just go, okay, well, I'll play for a while until the next patch comes out. And it's also a market for the game to be more stable, well optimized, and incredibly friendly for new players, as well as experienced ones, which I think all you guys are. But that'll only be the start of our journey together, because the vision of Star Citizen is a game that has no sunset, one that will continually grow with new content and features. We'll always make sure we're on the cutting edge of new technology. We'll never be outdated. I know I occasionally see, oh, in so many years, you guys will be out of date. But as you can see by our constant presentations, we're always looking to make whatever we can do, whether it's the visuals, the audio, various ways to make the gameplay better. That's something we will always be working on. So we'll always keep the game at the bleeding edge of graphics, sound, physics, and yes, we'll support VR, and we actually have some of that in the background we're doing. Now we get stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed this year's Citizencon. We demoed a small prologue that opens Squadron 42 live, with a few crashes to prove it. As I said, there's a really great full playthrough, no crashes, that Rich did immediately afterward that's up on YouTube. And we've given a date to finally deliver the spiritual successor to Wing Commander that the team and I feel comfortable in hitting. We've defined what Star Citizen 1.0 will be and shown features such as base building and monster hunting that will be delivering the next 12 to 18 months. 4.0 and server meshing and pyro is coming at the end of this year. We're already in Evocati on 4.0. I think some people have been streaming some stuff. And in coming weeks, we'll continually stabilize and improve the experience as it moves into PTU and then goes to live. With this, we will have delivered the majority of what we showed last year at Citizencon, with the remaining features coming early next year. And there are over 1,000 people committed, 1,000 people at CAG committed to bringing you all this and more. We love what we do, and we're inspired by your passion and support. We know that we are truly lucky to have such a strong community that shares the passion and dreams we do. You allow us a privilege that almost no other developer has, the ability to dream and reach for the stars. And I truly mean that, because as a developer, it's very unusual to be able to build a game of the ambition that Star Citizen is and Squadron 42 is, and that's all down to you guys and girls. So thank you very, very much. And then over this past year, an incredibly passionate group of people have worked behind the scenes to bring this weekend's event to life. And I want to take a moment to thank Leah and Ed, Tyler, Jared, Kat, and so many others who poured their hearts into making this weekend special for all of you. And a huge thanks goes out to our presenters and teams supporting them, whether they're here with us today or watching from one of our other studios around the world. In the words of Admiral Bishop, I'm proud to stand with our teams and everyone that put this show together. And all of the CAG staff working on the show floor, your hard work ensures everything runs smooth and keeps the energy alive throughout the event. And finally, a heartfelt thanks to the community members who volunteered their time to run this year's show. None of this would be possible without their dedication and support. I thank all of you very, very much. And you know, many of us in the team are going to, myself included, are going to head down the road to the Factory International for the Enter the Atmosphere event that Atmos is doing. So I hope a fair number of you will manage to make it over there. There'll be a whole night of racing and esports, a bonus developer panel with Yogi Klatt and Richard Towler, which I think are, as always, they're good panels. And with that, Citizen 2954 comes to a close. I hope you enjoyed what you saw, made new friends, reunited with old ones, and marveled at the creativity on display at the community booths, which was pretty awesome to see. And you know, Citizencon always underlines what makes Star Citizen special. So that's you. You guys here coming together, supporting, watching, giving us, the team, the energy to make this game. So thank you, and we'll see you in the booth.
Whew. All right. Oh, that was a lot. Okay. Just gonna exit out of that. Switch back to this screen. Oh, I should have taken that off. Sorry. All right. What did we just watch? All right, that was. I'm full of a lot of emotions after that one. There was a lot that I loved. There was a lot that I liked. There was a little bit of things that was like, okay, I'll have to see that in action before you know, I feel good about it. Then there were some things that it's like, I don't know about that. And then there's the confusion stuff. There was quite a bit of that panel that I'm kind of confused on, and I'll definitely need to go back and rewatch that to really fully digest what we just watched, because there was a lot, and especially when we got into the nitty gritty of like insurance and more like the warranty stuff, stuff like that was very hard to follow and very hard to understand fully what he was meaning by that. But to answer your question earlier, Dismer, about the main story, that was kind of a big kind of thing. And I love the idea of story missions in Star Citizen. It just caught me off guard because I thought that was technically the purpose of Squadron 42, but I guess it sounds like they're taking that game into its own kind of separate direction, which is fine. I don't mind that. I was just not expecting it. I was a big like, okay, so I guess we're getting a Star Citizen single player experience. Well, not really single player, but campaign experience. I would imagine that, involves co-op as well. And then, so, there's that, but then you of course have the Squadron 42 to play as the, definitive single player. So I'm wondering if they're taking their original plan of Squadron 42, the end game of that, and just kind of scrapping that and applying it to this new standalone story for Star Citizen, or not really standalone, but the campaign that's tied into the Star Citizen game, like that you'll actually go from doing the campaign to then becoming a citizen, because that was the whole point of Squadron 42, or from what I understood. It was like the idea is you were to play through the campaign, and then it obviously love it so much that the ending would be you becoming a citizen. And so that's kind of what they outlined with this new campaign thing that they just teased. So be interesting to see how that goes. But that was what my reaction was about in terms of my face. Like, I probably looked like I was really angry or mad or whatever, but I really was just like, wait, what? Where did this come from, kind of thing. So no, I support the idea. I think it'll be pretty solid. I think it'll be a really fascinating thing to see. Like, okay, you have the Squadron story, but then you also have the Star Citizen story, and that'll be a very interesting thing. And then it looks like you have another one. When do you think 1.0? That's what I'm going to get to here in just a little bit. Before we get to the 1.0, when I think it is, and that's probably a scary topic to try to attempt to even think about. But I'll get to that. That'll definitely be probably the last thing. So in this panel, they outlined what their vision is for 1.0. So like what many kind of speculated, and I completely forgive them, because like they said, when they first started this journey of creating this dream game, it had a much lower scope and much lower scale in regards to the planet tech. It wasn't going to be fully explorable, so I can completely understand why they're not going to do the 100 systems anymore, at least not in the 1.0 release. Now, they did say that the game is going to be a live service, so they said that even with 1.0 out, they will most likely continue to update as long as it, the game gets the support that it, needs to be able to sustain that. And I would imagine that, probably every year or so, we might see either 1 to 2 or 3 systems once they get their planet tech going. So I would say within a year or within a decade, if this game is still running strong, you could probably see 30 to 40 systems at some point. So that'll be crazy to see when it gets to that point. But we'll just have to settle for probably 5 systems is what it sounds like to be considered 1.0. So that is good. That is a pretty solid start. That's actually kind of roughly where I was expecting, 5 to 6 systems. And that's, that is, I think, a really good solid place to leave that. Is, where they were going to take the game originally is not where the game has gone. It's taken kind of its own new path. So it makes sense that they would have to dial back on some of their goals. And I don't know what the outroar will be. I don't know, to me it's kind of scary of the like legal battles that could possibly ensue from some of these announcements, because they received some of this money because of the hype of the goals that, or rewards for their, you know, their pledges, you know, their I can't remember the name of it, but the pledges or the little goals that they had set up to add to the game or add to the development. And so 100 systems, I believe was a stretch goal, I think is what it's called actually. But they were planning on doing that, the 100 systems during that, and that was one of their stretch goals, I believe. And so going back on that kind of stinks a little bit for many, and but at the same time I understand, because I would rather have 6 highly detailed systems than 100 barren and completely like non-existent systems. And like they could probably get away with releasing a bunch of systems with play like just completely like Wild West untouched land, and I would be cool with that too. Like having entire systems that are completely player led because of all of these base building stuff that they just showed us in the Citizencon. That would be crazy to see. Like actual like star systems that were 100% completely populated by actual players. And I could see that being the Star Citizens as a whole in game at some point, where there would be obviously enough players and enough people to then actually like get their empires established, and you would have like, you know, regimes and things like that would last, and then you eventually kind of take over your own system, and then you have control over it, and you know, you might have like a dictatorship, or you might have a democracy, or whatever it is, and you would have a bunch of people under that. Like, this is theory crafting a little bit here, and I want to try to stay away from that as much as possible. But what I'm saying is like having just completely untouched systems would be kind of cool. So you could probably dish out a lot of those pretty quickly, because you don't have to spend a whole lot of time. You just, you know, type in the values and then send it out to us, and we can have our fun with it with all these base building tech that they've showed off. So but the 5 systems that we're getting, I'm totally fine with. So let me read what you got here. Bummed when they said it was only going to be 5 at launch. Yeah, just use the everything is subject to change argument and dodge all of that. That's true. Having something like null sec from Eve would be amazing, in my opinion. You'll have to remind me of what null sec is. I've never played Eve, so a lot of what Eve had, I'm not fully like familiar with it. I've heard some, like, I know the player-led economy is a big part of it, but I don't know really a whole lot about the different securities and stuff like that. But so they talked about the main story a little bit. The kind of the main purpose of the story is it's leading your character to citizenship. And I guess they didn't really talk too much about what it means to be a citizen, other than it grants you like greater benefits. I guess you have less restrictions on where you can place a base, or where you can have access to. There might be certain like places that you can't go to because you're not a citizen, you're only a civilian. And I guess they're kind of, that's the 2 distinctions. You have the civilian, and then you have the citizen. So very interesting concept there. We'll see how that goes, but they basically said that it was self-taught, or self-paced rather. So one of the things that, like, if you're like in the middle of the campaign, or the story, you know, it's helping guide you through these, probably just about each and every profession, to kind of get you familiar with each one. So you probably will dabble a little bit into every single profession through the story, as kind of the campaign or the tutorial basically of Star Citizen, and it's probably going to be a kind of 10-hour. I would expect like a 10-hour like tutorial basically, is what it would probably amount to, or like boil down to, not really amount to, but boil down to, because you know, it's a great way to get people like started in a profession, and they can then hone that skill in the sandbox aspect of the game. But at any point, they said that you don't necessarily have to continue on that story to enjoy the sandbox. You can kind of step away from that story and go do your like other things. You can get started on a base or whatever. You can go mining, you can do refining, and you can go salvage and go be a baddie and pirate people. Like you don't have to do this story, but the end result of that story will benefit you in the long run, especially with in-game content, when you can go around and have better access or more access to wherever on the planet. So like, I know that'd probably be like the first thing that I would try to do is get through that campaign, get through that story, so that way I can be a citizen of the stars and be able to have total access to everything that the game has to offer. But real quick, so Terra is the 5th. So they announced that Nyx was going to be our next system after. Oh, thank you, Jason. I appreciate the sub. So Nyx is going to be the 3rd system after Pyro. And then they announced that Castra was going to be our 4th system yesterday. And so today they just announced that Terra is going to be our 5th star system. So I know that was kind of a fan favorite amongst the community. And so it makes sense that they would try to get to Terra as soon as possible. So, cool. I mean, I look forward to what Terra has to offer. It'll be interesting, but only thing is, like, and this is kind of where the kind of not necessarily irritated, but like just kind of questionable things started kind of emerging in regards to, okay, right now we only saw like 5 concept images of Terra. So it's just like there was a lot of stuff like that where it's like, man, I see where we're going with this and it's amazing, but like it's gonna be a long time, it feels like, to get a good chunk of what we just saw. So that's like kind of the first glimpse of, okay, like, well, when, you know, the question comes up when, but yeah, we'll get to that here later, in a little bit more detail, I would say. But then they talked about like these stories that are more locally based, and I mean, it, from what it sounds like to me, basically just side quests. So you might have a mission that takes you to a planet or landing zone or planet, or, you know, whatever, it may take you to a place, and then that might branch off into these other like side stories. And so that's kind of what a side quest is. So that's kind of what it sounds like, to me at least. So I'm expecting side quests in that regards. So that'll be cool. And I know that they really want there to be more reasons for you to stay planet side rather than just flying all over the place. Like, it's cool to have the freedom to go to other planets, but if you can like kind of hunker down on a planet, and you know, obviously that's the whole theme of base building, is being able to hunker down, but this whole idea of having things to do in the place that you're at and be able to do it for a long time and be there for a while is so cool. So I do like that aspect about like those side quests and having more things to do locally rather than having to like, oh, I'm gonna be in Hurston, and then, oh, you know what, now I gotta go all the way to Crusader to go do something, or I'm gonna go all the way to Pyro to do this other thing. You know, being able to do more things locally is going to be nice, and that includes the side quests. They did a guild breakdown. I can't remember. I didn't write down all of them because they kind of rapid fired that. So I'm not really going to remember a whole lot of from what guilds they went over, but they just kind of touched on what the guild's purposes are, like what kind of gameplay those guilds represent, and there's like two different kind of categories of the guilds, or at least that's what I kind of took from it. You have kind of like the professions kind of guilds that sounds like you can be a part of any one of them at the same time, but then you have your more combat guilds, which is more like you have to pick one or the other. So that's an interesting concept, and it makes sense because like, why would a goody two shoes start doing pirate type stuff, and why would a pirate start doing goody two shoes type stuff? That just makes it too confusing and makes it the reputation stuff way too difficult to monitor and take care. Like, so being able to establish which guild of the combats guilds makes sense, and sticking with that and sticking with that type of gameplay is a good thing. So there was that. So they mentioned Death of a Spaceman again, but they really like they haven't really talked too much about Death of a Spaceman in this particular segment. They have talked about it in depth in the past, but they kind of just brought it up briefly in this, and I want to say it was under the context of the insurance stuff, the warranty and insurance stuff, more specifically like your health and whatnot, and your imprints and all that, and the how you'll be taxed and this, that, or the other, for imprinting and copying your character to your next of kin or whatever. So, but then they mentioned a new thing, and it's similar to Death of a Spaceman, Death of a Spaceship. So you don't outright like lose your ship, it sounds like, unless it's of course an in-game ship. I think there's going to be a little bit more of a push to utilizing insurance and warranties, and I'm gonna have to do a little bit more like a rewatch of the insurance and warranty system, because that's when I mentioned that I had mixed emotions about this particular panel. That was a part this kind of whole section about the insurance and warranty just kind of went way over my head. So I'm gonna definitely need to revisit that and kind of slow it down a little bit maybe, and kind of take it in, because it was a little confusing. But I guess there's like their insurance and warranty are kind of two sides of the same coin, if you will. And so you will be able to recover 100% if you have LTI insurance or lifetime insurance. If you bought like a pledge ship, you'll be able to recover that indefinitely. But it sounds like people can still steal this ship, but there's going to be like a kill switch that disables it, which I don't know how I feel about. Because I kind of like the idea that if somebody steals a ship, then as long as they have it, and it's not in harm's way, that it's theirs, kind of thing. But I know you get into some legal issues with that, so they kind of put themselves in a situation there, but with selling ships. But you do what you got to do, I guess, to be able to fund this amazing project. So what I would have done is probably converted everybody's pledge into blueprints and just give them like full access to the blueprint of that ship. And if somebody steals your ship, you still have to go and get the resources, but you would be then able to just be able to just print a new ship. But yeah, that's my what I would want to see it more, to keep the pledge ships like still within the legal realm, because you can't just like have people steal those ships in game and expect there not to be a legal battle there. So yeah, I really want to go back, go revisit the death of a spaceship before I really talk too much about that and the insurance and warranty system. But basically, your ships can be insured and warranted, and even your imprints or your, the death of spacemen, health insurance, stuff like that. So interesting stuff there. They also mentioned how if you, let's say your character dies somewhere on the verse and you get a new body or thing, or next of kin shows up, then you can go to a, I guess, fully automated shuttle ship, and it'll take you to where your ship is that you got left. So like if you went to go do a bunker mission, for example, and you got killed or whatever, and you weren't able to survive that encounter, then you have a way of getting back to your ship. If you're like a solo player, most players would most likely be playing with friends, so they would probably just be there to help you out. But in situations where you're solo, so they're looking out for the solo players. So if you're a solo player, you'll be able to go retrieve your ship, no problem. And it's also to help kind of clean up the verse, because there are a lot of ships that are still flyable that just get left all over the place. And so they're trying to think of ways to encourage people to go and retrieve their ships, which you got to get those ship markers like working so that people can return to their ship easily and remember where they left it, kind of thing. But you get those fixed, then yeah, that'll be a great system to be able to get back to your ship and not have to worry about a extended claim timer, because they didn't really talk about claim timers in the insurance and warranty section. But I would imagine at some point claim timers, depending on the size of your ship, could take anywhere from a day to maybe even a month, if they really want to emphasize, hey, you need to fix your ship up if you want to fly it, otherwise you're going to have to wait a while to get it back. And I think especially like big capital ships, if those things go down, you should have to wait a very long time to claim it. So should just be a part of that, the risk and reward. So yeah, I mentioned the marks ships as stolen. If a player steals your ship, you can mark it as stolen, and then there's a kill switch. Still kind of, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like people should be able to just steal the ship and it be theirs, but how do you monitor that with the other things? Let me read a few comments before we continue. I have something like the nullsec from Eve would be amazing in your opinion. Nullsec is player owned space with no laws. Yeah, I think that's basically what Pyro and Nyx are gonna be. So I do like that. Also, if you have time, you really should get into Eve Online. Yeah, I've considered it a couple times. I'm a big fan of the FPS stuff, or like the first person perspective of Star Citizen, and that's what drew me to Star Citizen, because I'm gonna be honest, like I wasn't really huge in the space genre, but Star Citizen like was kind of this everything game where it had all kinds of different gameplay loops, and you could be on foot, you could be with the combined arms setup, where you can be on foot, you could be in a ground vehicle, you could be in a spaceship, and the seamless transitions between all the different gameplay and locations is just amazing. And so that's what drew me. And I know Eve is very in depth and really cool, but it's just the fact that I can't get out of my ship and walk around and admire the ship from the perspective of an actual character, is the thing that kind of keeps me from diving into Eve. But I don't know. It may not completely keep me away from Eve. I don't know. It's kind of one of those weird situations. But yeah, the nullsec I think having areas that is completely like Wild West, there's no UEE Navy to come and rescue you, that you know, that's something that they showed or as part of their plans is there's high sec, low sec, and then no sec. And that's basically, the no sec is basically Pyro and Nyx in this first, in 1.0's version of the game. So I think that'd be cool. I like the idea of there being that, but I also like the approach of, hey, if you don't want to get like offline rated like 24/7, you can go to the high sec or low sec and have at least a little bit of protection. But honestly, you don't even think about first person when playing Eve. It's just that good of it. Okay. Like I said, I'm not completely like against it. I just haven't gotten around to actually giving it a try. So I don't know. You might have convinced me, so I might look into it some more in the coming days to help me wait until 1.0. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm gonna definitely hop in when 4.0 arrives. But all right, let's continue on. This was another category or topic that I was a little confused about, and I think once they got further into what space stations were, it made more sense for what I'm about to talk about, and that's the station warfare. So he just like off the cuff started talking about station warfare and like how like you can do these things and it grants you like shield points or tokens, or that was kind of a section that went way over my head of like, what is he talking about here? And then of course then later on they reveal, okay, you can have your space station, which I knew that was coming eventually, but I didn't know like it was coming in the 1.0 kind of thing. So I would like to know a little bit more about what the shield system is. Is that just, was he talking more about like space stations are limited to these shield token things, or is it like all of your bases, like on planets and everywhere? Because like that's what it almost made it sound like before then they started talking about the actual space stations, and then it was like, okay, maybe that's what it's for. I guess you can have a space station as an org, and then you can do something to compete for these shield tokens, and so I guess maybe you're protected for your space station is protected for a particular amount of time. It was kind of confusing to me, so that's kind of one of those like, okay, I'll have to see it to kind of fully get a better idea of it, of what he's meaning by that, but it'll be interesting nonetheless. So then of course we saw space stations as the next stage in the base building journey. Once you have your huge org empire on a planet, eventually you can then take it to space and have your empire up in space, which is probably, I don't know what would be easier to defend, because you could be attacked from literally every direction in a space station, but on a planet you're kind of like you're limited on where you could be attacked from. It's like you could be attacked from up, left, right, front, and forward, but you can't be attacked from down below. But like with the space station, it's like you could be attacked from every single angle. so I don't know what would be a better thing to just stay planet side, or go into stay in a space station. So I'll get to your question, Dismer, here in just a little bit, because that'll be kind of the thing that I'll wrap up with in terms of my overall opinion of Citizencon, and that what I have to say about the Citizencon as a whole will help answer the question about my feelings about Squadron and the PU and the state of it, and also kind of where it's heading. So I'll stick around for that. Yeah, player stations, very, very cool, very exciting. There's a lot of skepticism that surround it right now. Obviously, like they showed the gray box, which I guess is a little bit further along than a lot of the other presentations that we saw throughout CitizenCon. Like a lot of what we saw this year was a lot of concept stuff. So to actually see a gray boxed version of base building is cool, but it's like, is it faked type stuff, or like we still haven't even gotten a simple base like yet. So it's like I want to see kind of how base building actually works when it's in our hands, and then it'll kind of help get me excited about the space station stuff. Like it's all about implementation. So if they can implement the basic stuff right, then I think that'll help me get really, really excited for what star or space stations have to offer. But they talked about how on this space station, rather in the space station, you have interior modules, or like little latch points that you can, like, they're basically doorways, or bulkheads as they were calling it, and it's just little sections within an already pre-established like series of hallways that you can attach a room to. And I guess it will play into the whole modular system that they've been developing for years for their ships. I'm sure the same sort of thing will kind of apply to the base building, in that it's like, okay, I'll have a hab room, or I'll have an infirmary for everybody, this, that, or the other. So various things like that will be really cool to see on the interior. But then they're like, oh wait, there's more kind of stuff, and they show that like you can then attach stuff on the outside to kind of add on to the base space station. So it'll have like other splines that you can go and hang out in, or it may have a specific purpose, like refining and cargo, like they were showing. And then of course the underside and the upper side, basically the president's suite is what you'd probably call that crow's nest module. So I mean, that'd be kind of cool. Your president of your org or leader of your org has their own living space, and so then you can kind of like have like a power struggle there within your orgs, like who gets that honor kind of deal. So that would be interesting gameplay to see how that all pans out. But the big thing that was kind of crazy, and I didn't expect, that is just the pure size of what these stations will be capable of. Because not only can you have like one space station, but then they showed that you can connect space stations. So it's like, if you get a bunch of guys in an org working together, you could have like this network of space stations up in space, and it would just be this massive structure that is completely designed and built by players, and it'd be like a city in the stars. So very, very cool stuff there. So that was something that was really cool to see. But at the same time, it's like, man, a lot of this stuff looks like we are like at least a minimum of 5 years out from seeing. They could prove me wrong. I mean, because base building is, looking a little bit further along than I was expecting. But I don't know. They've been able to make things look like they're further along than what they truly are. And come to find out, it's like a feature that still needs a lot of work, and so who knows. But yeah. So we'll see what happens with all of this, see how much of what they've shown this year comes in the next couple of years, but it doesn't look very bright in regards to when we will see 1.0. Like 1.0 feels a minimum of 5 years away with what they've shown off, and it kind of sucks to say that, but I don't see them getting that much stuff in the next 2 years, or 3 years or 4 years. Like, I don't even really see it in 5 years. Like, that's the minimum I would say 1.0 will come after seeing what they have. It's almost, it kind of almost, seeing this presentation today, it almost kind of felt like Star Citizen was going in one direction, and then they just kind of like, not really 180'd it, but just kind of took a completely different direction with it, which it could have just be because of all of the theory crafting that we've heard over the years by the community. It could just be like our own, like, we just didn't fully understand a concept in the early days, and so we just had this like preconceived idea of what Star Citizen was, and this was kind of to be expected. Like, don't get me wrong, I was kind of expecting this with this panel. It's like, we all have our ideas of what Star Citizen should look like, and this was the thing that they're like, all right, this is what it truly is going to be. And, you know, it's something that was needed. They needed to do this kind of thing, but it was kind of just like, wow, I did not expect what is left to get to 1.0. Like, that was a lot of stuff to have to work on and get to, and it's just kind of like a matter of, okay, when are we going to see any of this? Or, you know, yeah. So, and the last thing I wrote down, and there's plenty of other stuff that I just couldn't get wrote down because I was trying to stay focused on what they were saying, and a lot of it I did get lost on, but then you know, there was a lot of rapid fire information. So but the last thing I wrote down was VR. You know, Chris Roberts confirmed it on stage, but they didn't really show anything in regards to that or the progress of VR, but he said that VR will be something that comes at some point. So that is a confirmed thing from Chris Roberts himself, that they do want to port Star Citizen to VR. It'll be interesting to see what in the world VR headset would be able to support this game. But because right now they're like, the Quest is not powerful enough to handle that. So so yeah, that kind of wraps up the overall synopsis of the 1.0 presentation. So that kind of segues me into kind of wrapping things up in regards to what my thoughts were of this Citizencon, and kind of, I guess, break it down and kind of answer your question about what am I most excited for, or, you know, am I excited about Squadron? Am I excited about the Persistent Universe, or only care about the Persistent Universe? So I guess it all kind of starts in March, or whenever it was that they first kind of announced CitizenCon and like the dates and all of that. You know, in that announcement, they said that this was going to be the best CitizenCon to date. And coming after what we saw last year, and how everything that we saw last year was like almost like something that could be in the game within a month. Like, everything that they showed in last year's CitizenCon, with the exception of a few concepts, of course, here and there, but it felt like everything that they showed was within reasonable grasp of being able to actually see in the game within a month or two, or, you know, in this case, a year. Obviously they didn't deliver on everything that they showed, but everything felt achievable at last year's CitizenCon within a reasonable amount of time. And so the claim that this year's CitizenCon was going to be the best to date after last year's CitizenCon, that like was pretty solid. I loved it and it was great. I kind of feel like it under delivered in that sense. And I will kind of explain kind of why I've come to that. But first of all, it started off with a very, very slow presentation. Very technical, very I mean, it was informative. It was interesting, but it was just kind of dragging on. It was kind of slow. We were getting, the pictures of the little plants, and yeah, it was just kind of very slow and drawn out. That not to belittle any of the progress and work that those people did. Like all of those people had deserve all the praise because they are one piece of this giant puzzle. So they deserve some credit, they deserve that credit. But they could have put that particular panel in a different spot in this schedule, and I think it would have been a little bit better. Like if they would have started with the org stuff, I think that would have been a lot more stuff to get people excited early on in the thing, or in this whole Citizencon, and then have kind of a little bit more of a lull panel, if you will, with the Genesis panel. But that panel had a great finale, like the storm tech that they showed with the clouds and all that, and the lightning strikes and all that. It looked really good, and I loved the puddle systems that were accumulating on the ground. Everything looked like everything looked and felt like it was raining, like it should have. And so it was a really cool finale to that. So I've heard people say that they should have led that like within that panel. It's like you lead with that and then kind of explain the ins and outs of it, which they have done that format before, where they've shown a trailer or a video or like the overarching thing and then kind of break it down. I think that would have helped that panel out tremendously to get people like, okay, wow, like this storm tech looks amazing. But that is just my opinion about that panel. So that was kind of a little bit of a letdown, but at the same time it still was cool. So then you have the org tools panel, the social universe one. That one was really cool, and that one felt like it was probably the most attainable stuff to see within this year. I feel like that's a lot of like UI type stuff, which in theory shouldn't be like ridiculously a lot amount of work, especially since they've already got the art like kind of established. I mean, they'll probably make a few tweaks before, or like between now and then to it. It's probably not the final art of it, of the UI, but it looked like stuff that they could easily implement into the game, because it's just kind of a service that helps you communicate and identify org type stuff. So I don't expect those features to be that far away. I could see those within 6 months to a year in the game, working hopefully flawlessly. Then let's see, what was of course they had the cosplay thing, which was cool, talented people there, but let's face it, people are here to enjoy the announcements of what to be looking forward to in the verse. But it's a nice change of pace, I would say, having little stuff like that within your presentations. So yeah, that was cool. But we got to the Beyond Pyro panel, and it was, or was it that? No, it was the Dress to Kill panel. So it was the Dress to Kill and then the Beyond Pyro panel. So Dress to Kill was very interesting, showing the roles of different types of clothing and armor, and how your decisions will kind of affect your performance out in whatever profession you're doing. It doesn't completely bar you off from those professions based off of what you're wearing, but you might receive some benefits if you wear the right type of clothing. So that's nice. But it was a lot of concept, or it kind of felt like a lot of concept and not really fully fleshed out system that we will see soon. Once again, it's like just a lot of stuff that felt like it was just the concept or the idea rather than the actual execution. But I will say we got to see the sandworm return, and it wasn't just the backdrop. The sandworm was actually a physical entity that was in the game that players were fighting against, and that is something that is exciting to see. Like, that's a big boss fight. That's gameplay. That's something to go and do. And it looked like they could release that when Pyro goes live. It looks like they could release that in 4.0. It looked like it was that complete. And that may be something that they'll surprise us with, is like Pyro goes live and people go and test that out and maybe come across the sandworm and be like, whoa, they added it. I mean, people will probably data mine that type of stuff and kind of spoil that, but it'll be kind of cool to come across a sandworm without realizing it, having some sort of suspenseful moments like that, or crazy encounters that you just didn't expect. So there's that. And then of course there was the Beyond Pyro, so we got to see the confirmation that Nyx is the next system after Pyro, and that it's probably almost ready, I would imagine. But they completely redid Levski and Daymar as a whole, or not Daymar. What's the name of that moon or asteroid or whatever? But they completely redid that, and rather than it being like on actual like planet body, it was actually like on an actual asteroid, so that was kind of interesting. And then the big reveal of Squadron 42's demo, and that had me at the edge of my seat the entire time. It had my full attention. Were the turret parts of the game a little dragged out at the beginning? Sure, but at the same time, that was from the perspective of somebody watching it. I have a feeling that when you're playing the game, those segment, like when you're actually like focused on trying to, shoot those Vanduul ships, you're probably not really thinking about how much time it's taking. So to us, from a spectator's perspective, stuff like that kind of felt drawn out. But I would imagine when you're actually playing it, it probably goes by rather fast. So I'm not too worried about that aspect. That was really the only like complaint that I thought of during it. I was like, man, this turret section seems a little long here, but it got really great. Like the EVA whole, like that whole section, and you're going through the kind of like the horror elements of going through a ship, and the Vanduul is attacking some of your comrades while you're trying to escape this horror show, basically. But that was a great demo. It stinks that it crashed on them a couple times, and even Twitch crashed or did something weird that was kind of messed up the stream a little bit. But thankfully YouTube was working, so we were able to switch over to YouTube, and it worked just fine. But no, I loved it. And like, so to answer your question, Dismer, in regards to my excitement for Squadron, it hit an all-time high last year with I Held the Lines trailer. That, like, before that was the moment that got me sold on Squadron 42, because before that moment I really didn't care about Squadron. It's like it was something that I was planning on playing, but I wasn't like excited until last year. And yeah, last year I was like, this might be something very special. And I think this year was the confirmation of that like, okay, I see why this game has taken over 12 years to make. So I'm happy. with what we saw, regardless of the crashes. And I think that it'll be a phenomenal game, one that will, I think, blow a lot of those other space opera games that have come out in the past, like Starfield. But that's kind of unfair because they're kind of two different games. But I think Star Citizen, or Squadron 42 rather, is going to be a memorable experience, in a good way. I think it'll be phenomenal, and I'm truly genuinely excited about it. I back Star Citizen, or back the whole thing for Star Citizen. That's my ultimate dream game right there. Even after what we saw in the 1.0 presentation, it's still considered my dream game. Like, I could literally just put me on a planet, start working on my homestead, and work towards upgrading that homestead to eventually the space station. Obviously I might need to be a part of an org, and I'll get to that kind of whole thing here in just a little bit, about my thoughts on that whole aspect. But basically, to answer your question, Dismer, I am super excited about Squadron. I think it's gonna be a great game. Honestly, I kind of don't like how they go into detail about every single thing they add. No mysteries or secrets whatsoever. Yeah, that's a great point, Dismer. Like, especially with whenever they implemented the Copians and the Merrics, I really kind of wished that in every data file that had to do with the Merrics and the Copians, is rename them to like a code word or code name, so that nobody knows what the heck it even is. So if they data mine the files and find those keywords, they would have no idea what it was even about. And then one day you just wake up and you're walking in the game, and all of a sudden you come across these animals, and you kind of discover them for yourself, that hey, they actually added animals into the game. When did this happen, kind of thing. And have that realization. Like, think of, like, if nobody knew that they added Copians to the game, and you're exploring a cave, and all of a sudden you just hear this growl, and then you go and investigate, and it's this like creature, and it starts attacking you. Like, that would be terrifying in a game that you had no idea it even existed. And so a little bit of that was kind of ripped away when they teased that. And we're like, hey, we got Copians and Merrics in the next patch, or the 3.23, I think it was. So I really hope that we will have some surprise elements happen sometime in the future, because it is a little tiresome when a lot of what we get to see in the game is already revealed to us, like, beforehand. So I like some mystery, like you said. But so then day 2 happens, and if we had to make an argument of which day was the best day, I would say probably today's. I mean, the base building did not disappoint. I was in awe, and I was at the edge of my seat with Squadron 42's gameplay demo. But I was in just awe of what base building means for this game and for Star Citizen. And so just seeing a lot of the things that they've thought of were solid, and things that are going to give you reason and purpose for even playing the game, other than just for the sake of playing, is going to be so nice. Having something to strive for, to work towards, such as a base, is going to be so cool and so nice. And I really look forward to getting our hands on that whenever that comes in. And of course, their ships, they showed the concept of their ships. And they announced the Polaris is coming this year at IAE, and a couple of other ships as well will be straight to flyable and at IAE. So that's exciting. We're gonna finally get some of that capital ship gameplay that people are wanting. And then and then this panel, the 1.0 panel, where we saw what their vision is for a viable product, Star Citizen, and what all that entails. And like I said earlier, I have a lot of mixed feelings, but for the most part, despite all of the crazy turns or unexpected like things that they've decided or directions they've decided to go in, this doesn't change the fact that this is going to be like my game that I'm going to love and play for years to come. Like I can see it. It's the vision is going to be very bright. It's just a matter of when. It's like, when are we going to get see this? And that's the part that's really hard right now. It's like that's the part that's keeping my hopium and copium, or whatever, however you say that. That's what's keeping that at bay right now. Like, I'm not like bouncing off the walls, like crazy excited, kind of like I was last year, because once again, last year's Citizencon, I felt like everything was achievable within a reasonable amount of time. This year, I just don't see a lot of this in the game anytime soon. And that's my concern really right now with it. So to answer the question, if it was really even a question, but to answer or confirm or deny whether or not this was going to be, or whether this is the best Citizencon to date, I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm gonna have to say that, and I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer in that regards, but it's just, when what they showed was great, what they showed was amazing and incredible, and things to be excited for, but it's hard to get excited for something that doesn't feel like you're gonna be able to attain it anytime soon. And so that's the bittersweet moment of the Citizencon. But one thing that I did forget to mention about Squadron 42 is the release date. I was actually kind of hoping and expecting it to be like the furthest away 2025, like the end of 2025. I was not expecting it to be 2026, and so that was kind of a big like, oh, we saw this amazing gameplay and it looked like it could be ready at any moment, other than of course those few crashes here and there that they had happen. But then they dropped the date of 2026 and you're just like, oh, well darn. It's like, I was so excited. And the way they kind of approached it, you could kind of tell that they didn't want to say 2026, because like they really just kind of glossed over it. So I kind of wish, to make up for that, they would have released the demo as a playable thing that we could play until 2026, like just to have something, because that's a long time. But at the same time, I say that at least it gives us time to upgrade our PCs to be able to handle it at the max settings. So that's my silver lining with it. Is that it gives me time to upgrade my PC. Really, right now, my biggest bottleneck is my CPU and my motherboard. So, and I have a new CPU, I just need a new motherboard to support it. And by changing my motherboard out, I've got to get new RAM sticks. So this will give me some time to get to that point. So I'm planning on sometime maybe by the end of this year getting a new motherboard, hopefully. But if not, definitely by the end of next year. We'll try to get that all sorted, because I want to be able to play this game. I want to be able to play Star Citizen, and I want to be able to play Squadron, all with the max settings, you know, to get that full experience that it is, because I kind of view Squadron 42 as an interactive movie. I think that's what it's going to be. I think the amount of production value that game is going to have, and it was confirmed by the whole fight scene, or the whole battle scene in the prologue, that this is going to be a very special game. And I don't want to hype it up too much to where it will let us down in the future, but I genuinely think that it could be game of the decade, if not the century. And I know that's a big, bold claim to make, but you know, the amount of time that this game has had, and the amount of details that they've considered for it, and their visions that have seen for it, is just unmatched by a lot of the games. I mean, just the scope and the scale of everything. And they showed enough of the story to really get you invested in some of these characters even, and really get you invested in what journey your character is going to be led on. So I want to be able to experience that in the best possible resolution and FPS as I possibly can. So I'm very excited of that. It does stink that it's still like a year and a half away. But we'll see. We'll see where it lead, or like if it comes in 2026. You think we'll get a player beta before 2026? Interesting. I mean, as long as it's a short beta, I don't want too much of the game to be spoiled for many. You know, because then you, like in the beta phases of games like that, you know, you always have those leaks. You know, people will leak them, and then it becomes this big ordeal, and then people's opinions of the game are already established before they even play it. So, like, I'm hoping it'll be a very limited beta, but I would really love if they made the demo that they showed off, if they made it playable for an indefinite amount of time until the game actually does release. I think that'd be great. I think that'd be a good compromise, because we've waited so long for it. Give us the ability to have a little bit of a taste of it, just for the fun. Maybe just a playable prologue, chapter 1. Exactly. Like that. I would love that. You know, because then you can kind of really break it down and really appreciate all the fine details of it. Because you'd probably be playing it nonstop. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. It'll be one of those things we'll have to wait for, but it'll be here at some point. Hopefully. But I don't know. That's really my I guess thoughts though of this, and I thank you, Dismer, for engaging and asking questions and kind of letting me know your thoughts as well. And you know, that's what this is all about. You know, community, and I'm very happy and very excited to be a part of this community. I think it's the best gaming community that I've ever been a part of or even seen. And so I love Star Citizen, and I love CIG. I love what they've built, and I love where they're headed. And so I just, yeah, this has been an amazing experience, and you know, it's amazing. I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I do apologize. I think that is going to do it, though. I'm kind of tired. It's been a long weekend, for good reasons, but I think Citizencon is finally wrapped up, and we have another year of hopium and copium. Now that they have the copium, it kind of messes me up when I'm trying to say copium. So anyways, thank you, Dismer. Good night to you as well. And yeah, that goes for everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this adventure. It's been fun. This is the first time I've done like this, a true like watch along, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the format. Let me know if you can, if you guys can. I really want to hear your guys' feedback. I want to know what you guys thought of how I presented this stream. It could be as simple as, did you like the audio balancing? Did you like the different graphics that I had on screen? Did you like the banners that I had at the top of this of each panel? I kind of criticized my own self from the first stream because I had the banner for them a little bit probably too big, and it shrunk the height of the stream to where it kind of had a funky aspect ratio. And so I tried to minimize that as much as I could to where it was still relatively readable at the top. So I hope that was an okay thing. If you guys don't like those banners at all, then maybe next time we do something like this, I will not do that. But I really want to know your guys' feedback on all of that, because it'll help me kind of have a good idea of what is the stuff that you guys enjoy and what makes for good solid content for you guys. And yeah, I think that is going to do it. So you guys take care and have a good one.